Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about Power Platform core component. If you're coming from Microsoft background, I assume you have used or you have worked or at least you have read about the Microsoft Power Platform. There are so many videos, articles, reference guides to talk about what Microsoft Power Platform is. But today I'm going to talk about few core components which will be shared among which will be shared across different Power Platform feature areas. So before we get started with the core component, let me quickly do a quick recap about what Microsoft Power Platform is. So as you can see here, Microsoft Power Platform is a low-code platform that helps organizations to build business applications using all the Microsoft 365 workloads and Azure and Dynamics 365 workloads, and you can deliver applications very quickly, very easily, without writing a single line of code. So it is a no code, low code platform, and it provides four key feature areas or core component, four feature four business offerings. In other words, to start with Power Apps. So Power Apps is basically is a rapid application development capability which allows you to develop application without absolutely no code or low code. And if you look at Power Automate, it allows you to create business processes, in other words, automated workflows. And you can connect different applications and services, and you can automate any repetitive business processes that will improve uh, the user experience for your internal users with Power Automate. And Power BI is basically a business analytics service, deliver business insights for analyzing data. And Power Pages again allows you to create external facing websites very easily. And we also have Power Virtual Agents, we call bots framework, which allow you to create powerful chatbots using a guided or no code graphical interface. And you don't need to have any knowledge about data scientists or how to write chatbots. So you can develop a interactive virtual agent chatbot with the help of Power Virtual Agents. And as you can see, when you are delivering solutions on top of Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, or even Power Pages, uh, there are three main components which you will reuse, or you will see these three features coming in all these three or four different workloads. So you will use connectors, you will use Dataverse, you will use AI Builder when you are working with Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, and Power Pages. So my focus today is not to talk about what Power Apps and how to build Power Apps or how to build Power Automate workflows or how to create Power Virtual Agents. I will save that for another day. But assuming you have already worked with these components, my focus is to give a little bit of room to talk about what are these shared components, or we call Power Platform core components, and dig little deeper into the connectors today, and probably cover AI Build and Database on another session. So if you look at connectors, so let me go to this Power Automate. So when you are creating a new Power Automate, you will see uh, there is an option called connections. So very often you will have to connect with different systems when you are providing this business process. So one good example is, let's say you need to create a workflow on top of SharePoint list or library. So when someone insert a document into a SharePoint library, you need to automatically start a workflow and run that document through an internal approval process. So you need to connect your business process with a data source or another system such as SharePoint. Similarly, OneDrive, let's say you want to run a workflow automated process when someone store a document in a OneDrive um, location. And similarly, let's say you want to uh, create a Power App. So you'll see even in Power Apps, you will see this option called connections. So let's say you want to create an application, or you want to create a business application which retrieves data from a SharePoint list or library. Or let's say you want to create a business application which communicate with Dynamics 365 or Salesforce, or even Dropbox, and you need to retrieve data, as well as you need to provide uh, the capability to create, update, delete, read information from various systems. So basically, connectors is a concept which allow you to establish a communication between your Power Platform and external systems, um, and connector act as a bridge between your Power Platform or whatever the application you're building. It could be a business process, or it could be um, a Power App application. So it acts as a bridge between your application and the external system. Uh, so if you look at the traditional way of bridging your application with external systems, or integrating different systems, is using APIs, right? So similarly, you can communicate with SharePoint via SharePoint built-in APIs. You can communicate with Salesforce via Salesforce APIs, and you can communicate with any other systems like Azure AD with APIs. But having to work with APIs is a cumbersome task. You need to go through the API documentation. You need to read and you need to learn about the API, and you should know what API and what operations to use. So it takes a bit of time before you get started. So the whole objective of Power Platform is to simplify the development. So that is why we have connector. So connector is basically a wrapper around the API. So if you look at SharePoint connector, so SharePoint connector is a wrapper around the SharePoint API. So you don't have to learn or study the SharePoint API and the operations. You can easily get started with the SharePoint connector. Um, so as you can see, there are a bunch of connectors. So you can select a connector, and you can create this connector instance in your Power App or in your workflow. So if you look at in Power Automate, we have similar set of connectors. So we have little over 400 connectors provided by Microsoft, and some connectors are connecting with the Microsoft application. So we call them as internal connectors. But there are connectors which helps you to connect with external systems like Salesforce, MailChimp, Twilio. So we call them as external connectors. So what you can do is basically you can go to this connector reference. So the objective of this video is to put all the important resources in a single location. So I will share all these references in the description. So if you look at the connector reference, here you will see a list of connectors provided by Microsoft Power Platform, and there are a few legends available for you to read about the connector. So some connectors available only in the logic apps, some connectors available in Power Automate, some connectors available in Power Apps only, some connectors are in preview, and some connectors considered as premium connectors. So there are two kind of connectors, standard and premium. So standard connectors are basically connectors provided at no cost for all the Microsoft 365 customers. But the premium connectors basically are connectors you need to have a premium subscription or premium license in order to use that connector. So if you go down this list, if you go through this list of connectors, so let's if you look at we'll take one example such as Amazon S3. So you'll see it's available in Logic Apps and Power Automate and Power Apps, and it is a premium connector. Right? It's not a standard connector. So if you go to this connector, so beauty of this reference is it'll tell you so where this connector is available, and also who has published the connector and what are the known limits. So there are some well-known or known limitations that they have documented, and what are the other important things, throttling limits especially, how many API calls. So again, see, this connector uses the Amazon S3 API behind the scene. So it allows only 6,000 calls per second. So this is a throttling limit imposed by AWS S3 API. So you need to be aware of these limits as well. So when you're going to use the connectors, you need to know what are the limitations, what are the known challenges related to the connector. Um, and so there are other important things about connectors is basically there are two things, important things as triggers and actions. So triggers basically is something we use with Power Automate. It's not available in Power Apps. So triggers allow you to basically kick off the business process, and there are triggers associated with these connectors, and depending on the connector there are different triggers. For example, if you look at the SharePoint, there are triggers like when item is added, when item is deleted, when item is updated. So similarly in SQL Server you have triggers, um, and actions are basically nothing but okay, what you want to do once the process is started. So actions are available in Power Apps. Actions are available in both Power Automate and Power Apps. So actions are like, okay, once item is added to the SharePoint, that's a trigger. Action is okay, go and send an email. So sending an email is an action, so which is associated again with connectors. Um, so after going through this connector reference, so you will pick what are the connectors you want, and okay, so what if you have a system that you have developed internally, or a proprietary system that you don't have a connector in this connector reference, right? So you can search for the connector. There are list of filters you can filter based on the connector. So you go through all the connectors, and then you realize there are no a connector for the system that you are looking to integrate with. So what would be the alternative? So you can then get the support from a developer, and then developer will study the API available in that system, and then developer will be able to create a custom connector. So this document outlines how to create a custom connector. So the developer will be able to go through this life cycle and then study the API and create a connector, and you can use it within your organization. So you will be able to reuse that connector whenever you want to connect and work with that system. And if you think this system is something widely used, but you don't have a connector in Microsoft Power Platform Connector Store, then you can even submit your connector to Microsoft Connector Gallery. So Microsoft will thoroughly review your connector implementation, and then if everything is in order, so basically a connector will be published to the Microsoft Connector Gallery. So that's about the connector. So connectors is one of the core component of Microsoft Power Platform. You will see connectors coming in Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Pages. So whenever you want to integrate with an external system, the way to do that is using connectors. And if you don't have a connection, you know where to look for connectors, available connectors, to read about the connectors. And if there is no connector, the next step is basically look at creating a custom connector and then even publishing it to the um, Microsoft connector gallery. So I hope this video gives you a high level understanding about connectors and what connectors are and where to use connectors, what the advantages are. So we'll discuss about database in another video in the future. Thanks.